this is actually for all three candidates. So do you guys have any cool or exciting ideas for any new programs to implement within BAS? Because in the past, BAS has been able to execute BAS Rush, BDP, BD Olympics, but are there any new ideas or programs that you have in mind for the year?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So this year, if we're all elected, things are actually going to be a bit different from last year and the year before that, because in the year that I was VPHR, we actually restructured the plan of our events. So if we're all elected this year, BD Olympics is actually going to happen in the summer, and Pathways, which usually happens in the summer, is now going to be in the fall. So I think with that being said, I definitely believe in what we've done in the past in terms of running those programs, but it is a new and different timeline for us. So I think this year I would want to focus a lot on making sure that those events go well versus maybe doing another event. Another event I think would be really great if we can find something that fits within the second to third year market. But if we can't, and if it has to be a smaller event, then I think definitely focusing more on doing well in BD Olympics and Pathways is something that I think is really important.
Well, something that I've been really wanting to consider, I can't take full credit for this because this is something that my current executive team had talked about, is expanding SLR, the Student Leadership Retreat as a whole, and getting how we can better get the students involved. Part of my platform is to create a more collaborative culture within the BD community, and we're thinking, why not get the clubs involved in terms of the sessions that we host at the Student Leadership Retreat, because there's a lot of value in that. Like, for example, HRSA might do something on recruitment, Finance Club can do something in terms of that as well, and also SMA would be really interested in doing a marketing session. I think that's a good way to bring the students together, because this is something that doesn't traditionally happen. Like, for some reason there's been this kind of idea that the clubs are competing in a way, which to me I don't think is really necessary. I think that everyone should be working together because everyone benefits in the end.
I'd like to see that there's an event, so mostly first and second years can go, and they can approach me, Board of Advisors, the executive team, and give feedback personally, face to face with those who are representing them. So something like cookies and chat, something like that.
I have a question for Katie. I was wondering, as VPHR, how will you increase the amount of applications for BAS events such as BAS Rush, the Olympics, or even in the future for the Executive Council?
Increase applications, okay. Let's see. So I'll address this in 2 points. So in terms of the BAS Executive Council and the positions that we have within BAS, we actually get a lot of applications for that, to the point that we often have to reject good and high quality candidates. So in terms of getting applications for that, I don't really see a big problem or issue in terms of getting the application. It's more so seeing what other opportunities we can provide to those candidates that we think are really awesome but can't provide a position for them right now. In terms of increasing applications for our events, the HR portfolio doesn't actually have too much to do with that, because the events are run under our OCs, and usually the marketing for that is done by the marketing director. But it is an entire BAS team effort to get applications for that. So I'd say for a lot of the first year programs, it's really doing marketing to people, whether it's at that Making Connections event at Surrey, or I don't know, like going to the first year BD group on Facebook and promoting that. I think those are ways to increase our applications to there. And in terms of our other events, it's really about marketing to students when we can, increasing the word of mouth, and just doing more online or in-person marketing, I think is really important. I think classroom presentations are great, and we should definitely continue to do that. But maybe talking with our executive council as a whole to see whether we can implement some sort of discount if people go to multiple BAS events. I know we've been talking about that for a while, but maybe seeing what other cool things we can do to increase applications and increase ticket sales.
So this question's for Katie. Just kind of building off of like the whole application thing. Once you do have your team selected and whatnot, you mentioned in your either introduction or question that like people they're really pumped up right away when they get selected, and like they want to do a whole bunch of things. But that being said, as the year goes on, like things get tough, like people burn out, how do you plan on like keeping that motivation going throughout the year? Like I know you mentioned like doing all hands meetings and things like that, but it's like if people are already burnt out by that point, like what for them, maybe they could see like there being not necessarily an issue, but like they may have a problem with going to these events, like they might be burnt out or they might see it as a burden. Like how do you plan to keep them motivated throughout the year?
So I see this really as two main areas of focus. The first one is being preventative. So I think an idea that I had for this year when we recruit our coordinators is actually doing a big BAS info session. So talking to potential coordinators, letting them know what we expect of them, and maybe changing what we actually expect of them this year. Because in previous years, it's always implied like, hey, you have to come to BAS booths, you should really come to BAS banquet, but we really never tell them face to face like you're actually expected to be there. If you're, for example, an event coordinator, you definitely have to be there because you're planning an event, but sometimes people don't understand that because it's kind of implied. So I think in terms of preventing that burnout, it's really letting them know what's expected of them in paper and also verbally when we do the onboarding training is really important. And I think for every VP, we should be more strategic in terms of how they first communicate with their team. So I think every year there's that kind of like, hey, like, yay, you're selected and we're gonna do great things. But it's also really important to talk about what they want to learn out of BAS and also what other commitments they have, because a lot of our coordinators are really excellent individuals who are also involved in other BD related stuff. So seeing where BAS falls in their priority, how the VP can accommodate to that. And I think a really big part is falling on the VP to be able to communicate with their coordinators and identify that. But let's say if we weren't able to be preventative, and if it really does happen, I think things happen in life, and we're all students. We also do a lot of other things out of school and BAS, and I think sometimes it's okay if they're not able to prioritize BAS at some point or event. But I think it's having the conversation with the individual to understand it and see what else we can do to make sure that they still can get what they want to learn out of BAS.
Paul, what do you already know about the BD culture and the first and second year students within BD?
From what I've learned through my experience, I've learned a lot of BD is extremely tight, especially through I've seen a lot of like the JDC West candidates. They're very, very close individuals. So I noticed the BD students especially among SFU, they're really close individuals. It's a really friendly environment, and I've really enjoyed being part of that. And that's what I find to be like the culture. Just being friendly. It's a very inclusive environment. And could you repeat the second part?
Students in BD?
Oh, students in BD. So, like I said, the students are really, really close. The first and second years, they're really hard-working people. It took a lot to get here and to be involved. It's a lot of, like I said, hard-working people. They know a lot what it takes to be here and how to improve.
So you previously mentioned that for students within BD, especially first and second years, many of them don't know how to get engaged. But at the same time, you're also saying that's a very friendly and tight-knit environment. My question is, how do you think that it's a tight-knit environment when the first and second years are struggling to get involved and struggling to find opportunities for them? And building on top of that, what do you think you can do to bring the first and second years who are scared of getting involved to become even tighter and unified within the BD community?
So providing those opportunities, I'd like to be able to provide the opportunities so that they have the opportunity like to come out and be involved in the opportunities that BAS provide.
Okay, this one's for Katie and Deborah. Both of you had mentioned either stakeholders or just the financial sustainability of BAS. That being said, neither of you mentioned anything about the SFSS or anything like that, but also how can we utilize them to pursue financial sustainability in the future, or just even pursue financial sustainability in the future? Like, I know that's kind of been a big question that I know for myself and years past we've always tried to look at, but what do you guys think we could do to kind of work towards that this year?
Work with SFSS to.
Like, whether it is the SFSS or various other stakeholders, but that's just an example of one that we could probably utilize,
To
that
achieve.
you guys failed to mention. But that being said, like, what do you think would be a good kind of stepping stone for you guys to pursue, like, go down that road of financial sustainability if you guys are elected for this year?
So, I know probably in both our minds, there's been a lot of talk within the executive team about a levy happening. I think in terms of Deborah's plan of establishing us as FSU, maybe being or thinking about the levy is something that we're interested in. But every year it's a struggle because we have a lot of other events that are happening, a lot of internal things to handle. Where does the levy or establishing ourselves as an FSU stand in terms of those priorities? I think doing a levy, I think, would be the most, like, the best thing that could happen to us, because that would mean definitely long-term sustainability in terms of finances. But I think that's also a really big step for us, because that means that we'll have to go out and ask students about what their thoughts are on a levy, if it's sustainable for them and what their thoughts are. So I think that definitely wouldn't happen in our year. Maybe we can start doing surveys and things to students, asking them about it. But I don't think that will actually happen in our year.
Yeah, basically going off what Katie said, like she mentioned that the levy is not likely something to happen in this year or even in the next couple years. So I think in terms of working with SFSS, like figuring out different ways that we can start building BAS up to that position where they might be able to do that in the future. Different steps that they could take to, I guess, like how we would implement that and things that we can do to better establish BAS as an FSU and how to position ourselves to be in that area later on.
I think, another thing to add is, I think what we can start doing with SFSS is trying to learn from them about how they established their own levy, because we all pay a student fee to the SFSS, so seeing how they did that and seeing how we can apply that to our skill and to business students. And I think also addressing another issue that was mentioned previously was about external companies losing interest in BAS. And I think something to note there is that when we go out for sponsorship, you have to think of it as people are giving us free money that they earn hard for. So sometimes it's not necessarily easy for someone or a company to give us free money in exchange for something that they may see as tangible or intangible. So that's why I think sponsorship is always difficult every year. With that being said, that is how we're operating right now, and we've been quite successful in terms of sponsorship, and I know we definitely have a big reserve of money within the BAS account. So yeah.
Just kind of building off of that, this is for all of you now. Like, if we ever do decide to go down the road of a levy or just even like gauge support, like how do you guys foresee BAS trying to like what could BAS do to kind of convince the students, right? Because like I was saying, like there's very little, not very little, but there's, in terms of percentages, there's maybe what, 10-15% of students that are actually involved in BD. What about that other 90 to like 85%, depending which end you're looking at? Like those other students, right? That they're going to be forced to pay that levy too. Like, what do you guys think you guys could do to generate buy-in for that? Especially considering like SFU is largely a commuter school, and a lot of them are just going to go to class, go home. Like they, in a sense, wouldn't really be seeing tangible benefit from that. Like, what do you guys think would be the best bet to kind of generate buy-in, not only from like those students who may not necessarily be involved, but also the students who are involved?
I think in terms of generating buy-in, we have to be careful about how we structure the levy. So levies can be in different forms, whether it's like a per term or per year amount. Obviously with that levy and with the money that we can potentially gain, our events would not be as of a higher cost. So I think that's one way to advertise and market to students, is that if you pay the levy, it's almost like having a discount on the events that you go to, and it also encourages people to go to them because it's cheaper than what it usually is. But in terms of having buy-in, I think it's important to be realistic in terms of the amount of people that we can reach. I think we should definitely be out there talking to students every week or whatever is possible for us. but at the same time, if the students aren't willing to talk to us or aren't on campus or just aren't accessible, I think we also have to consider that as a possible option or a challenge that we can face. But I think it's definitely trying our best in terms of talking to the students, seeing what they want, doing emails or doing surveys or doing info sessions about it. I think that's a first step in terms of doing or getting buy-in.
Yeah, kind of building off what Katie said, I think it's also really important for BAS to be transparent about what the levy would be used for. A lot of students, I know, like for me personally, I always question, what is SFSS using our money for? And I think that's something to really consider is like, what are the, for our levy, what are the students looking to gain from it? Like why would they be willing to pay us this amount per year or per term, like Katie mentioned? And also for the students that aren't necessarily involved, I think reaching out to them, because I think typically, like, we have surveys or we have different events for students to come out, but that doesn't really reach everyone because, the same people that are involved are the ones that are clicking those surveys or going to those events, and, just trying to brainstorm new ways that we can reach those other students, whether that be like through classroom presentations or other kinds of promotion.
I guess another question would be directed more to Katie and Deborah. So being a part of BAS, you do have a seat on council, which is part of the SFSS as well. So on council, there are students from all different faculties, all different student organizations across campus. How are you guys going to distinguish yourselves as BAS and kind of work with these other groups and make sure that the business students' voices are most well represented?
From my understanding, we have 2 seats on the council, or 3 seats. Oh,
Sorry.
in my year, there was 2, but I don't know. But from what I know, we've always, like Jessica attended them in her year, and I think Daniel attended them with her. I'm not too sure about this year, but I know that we definitely have representation on those meetings. But I've also know that sometimes things discussed in council are maybe pertaining to the business students. But I think it's definitely important to be there or have someone there to voice interests of business students if there was anything in particular to it.
Yeah, for me personally, I actually had the opportunity to attend a couple council meetings, and I feel that, like Katie mentioned, it is good that we do have business representation, but I think something is, being more engaged in what they are talking about. I know a lot of times they have, pretty long agendas and their topics that, like you said, don't really pertain to business students. Kind of consider, a lot of other faculties are probably in the same position, like this topic doesn't necessarily pertain to us either, but that doesn't mean that we should just sit back and, just listen to what they're saying and try to think of ways that we can further engage ourselves with the council.
I think it's also working with the biz rep, like you. So I think outside of being present in the council, I think every year we always have a biz rep, but it's like Sadnam before Hangu worked with Jessica a lot on establishing ourselves as a FSU. So I think it's continuing that partnership because I think maybe in years before that wasn't as tight-knit, but I think definitely going down a good path. I know Sadnam helped us a lot, but it's seeing how we can do more in that sense and how the biz rep can come in and support us more.
For Paul, you said you want to get more feedback from first and second year students. How do you plan to do that for those first and second year students who aren't as engaged in others?
The event that I'd like for people to, like the executive team, board of advisors, people to come out and having that event where they can come and give the feedback. I like something where it's out in the open, where people have the opportunity just to come up and say, hey, like, what's this? They want to find out. People are always at school, obviously, and they'll be looking, seeing what's around the campus. So just having the environment where they can just drop by, just say, oh, what's this? How can these people help? Something where they provide, where you provide the opportunity for people just to walk by, give like small amount of recognition.
Sure. So I have a follow-up question to that. So a lot of the times people may come to these events and believe that what they tell you in terms of things that they think can be improved will be resolved or be improved. but what if they say something that's like totally unapplicable to us or doesn't make sense for us to improve on or do? Then, and what do we do in that situation?
In that situation, I'd like to, if it's not personally like for Bass, are you talking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Personally for Bass, I know Bass is involved with so many other clubs. Look to see if those other clubs may be able to help with whatever their concern is, if it's not personally applicable to us. So see if there's any other opportunities to look to others to see if there's a way we can address their concern.
Okay, kind of just building off of Katie's question about like different initiatives and different things like that. This is for Paul. You were saying like there's a difference between people who attend events, but people who are also involved and actively engaged, right? Your kind of example with okay, let's hold like even a de-stressor or some event, kind of like our AGM, where people can provide different forms of feedback, whether they come up to us and talk to us, right? There's that. But that being said, like, do you have a strategy to get more people engaged as opposed to just getting more people out, right? Because as of right now, if you think about Bass, with maybe 50 positions available for 3,500 students, that's like just over 1%. Like, is there any way that you foresee us actually expanding in terms of more opportunities for first and second year students, or is there any, or is it something that we should just kind of like focus on what we have already, as Katie had mentioned, like you had said, like, okay, let's focus on pathways and BD Olympics and just focus on that throughout the year. Like, do you think it's necessarily feasible to do all these new things?
I don't, yes, like I said, that providing them more opportunities, I'd like to focus on the things that we have because they are proven to work. Like I said, I've had great experiences in them. Just provide like a couple more opportunities, just some small events, maybe one bigger thing. So, but focus especially on the things that we know are proven to get people involved, get them known. So just some small events here and there to provide them with the opportunities to get engaged.
Okay, this is for all candidates as well. If you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be and why? Let's start with yourself.
I'd say curious, just because I'm always looking for just the reasoning why. I'd like to know why. I always look for the why. I'm always wanting to know why, how I can help, something like that.
I would say open. I'm open to change, I'm open to different ideas, I'm open to working with different people, but at the same time, being realistic is also really important to me, but my word would be open.
For me, I'd say I'm really dedicated to a lot of the things that I do. Like, for example, my role this year was a bit different because it was combined with the typical like organized committees as well as the events for like Bass Banquet. And for a lot of people, they'd ask me like, how can you handle all these things? Don't you get really stressed out? And for me, like it was, I won't lie, like it was hard at times. But for me, I want to give all that I can to everything that I do, whether it was through Bass or through other positions. I think that's really important because how you, because when you like leave, when you finish your position, for example, do you want to be able to look back on it and be proud of what you did? So that advisors, I think utilizing that relationship and allowing them to really present their ideas to the board of advisors who really provide a lot of feedback on what Bass does and how because I know for Bass in particular we aren't really familiar with how SFSS runs. That's something that the BizRep also is really helpful in, is that they know SFSS, they know how like new opportunities or new avenues that we can explore in terms of working better with SFSS.
I think like if we were to pursue the FSU status, then the BizRep would also be really helpful in that sense, in that they probably know what the SFSS has done and can provide us resources in that area.
So thank you for all your questions, and that concludes the debate for the 2016 Bass elections. So the voting will start from February 6th at 12 a.m. until February 8th from 11:59, and it's only applicable for business majors, minors, and joint majors. All votes will be anonymous, and a link will be sent to your SFU email today. And the results will be announced on February 11th on BAS social media. And if you have any other questions, the candidates will stay after, and if you have any more, you can just ask them. And so thank you for your time to come out. And let's just give a applause for all